I'll show you right now Zheng Manqing's most classic correction. Give me the posture here. So take the shoulder like this, elbow here, push your elbow down straight, turn your wrist at the same time, pull the shoulder back with his fingers, and stretch your wrist out like this. What he's doing is wringing out the dish rag. Let's do some real work with the arms so we can see what we're doing here. Okay, let's make some terminology. If we turn the arm this way, with both of them inward like this is called yang. If we turn the other way, this is yin. All right, so just yang and yin. Now, in doing this, do it enough so you get the sensation. You can feel movement and change. It just so happens that these kind of winding movements produce huge amounts of change in the muscles because the muscles themselves wind. So these winding changes are it's very easy to start having a lot of sensation in the arms when you do this. And in fact, one of the reasons these funny, nothing-looking exercises are so good for you is because these sensations go along the lines between the muscles. And the lines between the muscles are where the acupuncture lines are. So you're sort of giving yourself an acupuncture treatment every time you make the muscles slide and move like that. Now, this is very simple. But look at the arms now. They have two parts. So actually, we could rotate one part in one direction and one part in the other direction. Ah, this is the prerequisite for this class. Absolutely essential. Okay. Now here's the way we do this. Let's look at the right arm. Let's rotate the whole arm yin. Like this. Okay, notice in doing that we've pointed the elbow down and the palm up. Oh, by the way, in all of these movements, never straighten the arm completely because that ruins the rotations. If you always keep the elbow a little bit, you get much more stretch here. Okay, so in doing this, we have rolled everything open. Now, suppose just from the elbow down, we turn the palm down. All right, but we keep this in the same position. Aha, there we are. Half yin, half yang. Now, let's take this poor part that we didn't rotate and rotate it over like this. That produces this position. And watch out, we don't want the things to raise the shoulders. The whole trick is to... Now, let's take the lower part and rotate it in. Keep the elbow bent. Right. Now, you have this position called peng. This is called peng because it looks rather round, especially if you do it with both arms. You end up in this position. And when you see guys standing around doing their mysterious meditations, this is what they're doing, or what they're supposed to be doing. If they're not consciously rotating these things in two opposite directions, just a little bit, they're not getting the separation that they really want. Now, this, of course, if we lower the elbows and turn the palms again, we have this position, which is called an because it looks like somebody pushing something. And an means push in Chinese. But it's generic. It refers to this change, this internal change. So this an, this peng. So we have four changes now. We have yin and yang, half yin, half yang, half yang, half yin. So the hard change is to go back and forth between the peng and the an. And when you do that, the elbow must lower, the palm must turn. Then the elbow raises, palm turns back. Elbow lowers, palm turns. Raises, turns back. So you get the movement of the elbow and the wrist closer and closer together, so finally they seem to move almost at the same time. Okay, now, from doing the Chansijing, from understanding a little bit about the theory, you should be able to get a hold of what is so good for you about this kind of change. It's an extreme amount of internal change for very little movement. You can move your arms like this, and nothing's happening inside of them. But when you do this, all the muscles are winding and unwinding in all kinds of directions. So just doing this itself is Qigong. Okay, now, notice, with this back plucked up, this particular change has a lot more feeling. Without the back, you do not feel so much change in the shoulder area. It shows a certain general principle of Kung Fu and Qigong that you have to understand. If this simple analogy of this stuff is like taking a dish rag and wringing it out, so taking the body, remember you have to do two things with the dish rag. For one thing, you have to hold it on both ends. You can't just start running in the other. Both ends have to work. So when you do something like this with your arms, and you're sort of not paying any attention to the rest of the body that's connected to it, it means large muscle groups here are just being sort of pulled along as groups by this movement. As soon as you pluck up the back, you pull them from another direction. And now, when you do these arm things, you get little separations in the muscles like this. And that's, again, that's internal. When muscles begin to separate and make internal changes, then you get energy flowing. Through Peng. Now, Peng would be perfectly okay, and is in fact done very much like this by ballet dancers who just lift the elbows more. But to use it as a martial way, we must separate it at the shoulder. You put your shoulder forward like this. Now, this should produce a conflict. If you have your back plucked up and you put the shoulder forward, the tendency will want to do this to break this in the upper back. So these are the two parts that you're pulling the shoulder with. One is the arm and the other is the upper back. You want to keep them both happening. Keep the back plucked up and try to put the shoulder forward. You'll discover when you do that, your shoulder blade doesn't disappear. It's right there. You can still feel it. And in fact, it produces this funny sensation of kind of tension and strangeness in the shoulder where you maybe have little indentations in the muscles. So again, pluck up the back and put the shoulders forward. Now you'll see you have quite a bit of movement. You can do quite a bit of movement in the shoulder like this, and that's very different from doing this, where you let the back break here. So now, when you do ward off, this is Peng, you put the shoulder forward as an added part of this movement. But remember, it's very conservative in the sense that you don't try to overdo it. You just hold this straight, and then you put it as far as it goes, and that's it. Right. Now, when you do, there's a good reason for this. It produces a condition where you don't have your arm dislocated when somebody pushes on it too hard. But anyway, when you do on, first experiment without changing the shoulders. Keep them forward. If you were to lower the elbows now and turn the palms, I'm sure that you all begin to feel this strange pinchness across the back and a kind of like tightness here, and it produces an odd-looking position too that isn't very elegant. So what you do is the shoulders have to release and come back. Then the elbows lower. And you have this. So now test your shoulder and make sure it's feeling like it's in a loose position. Because you're not to be extreme and pull it back more. It's just to put it back where it normally was. Then, as you do Peng again, it comes forward. And then do on, it goes backward. Now, in order, when you do these changes, they always move through the body like a wave, and you always start at the center of the body and move out. So technically, you want to make the shoulder change first, and the elbow change, then the wrist. But it happens like very much in a flow, so it's almost at the same time, completely. But think, I'm starting in this position, shoulders, elbows drop, wrists turn. So like a whip, the last part of the movement is the extremity of the whip. The whip in this case is the end is your fingertips. So shoulders, elbows, wrists. Then again, shoulders come forward, elbows start to lift. So this gives you the feeling of presenting the ward off like this, and not turning your hand first and then having your body be dragged after it. So the movements come from inside the body. Now, this, if we've done all this, we have the whole thing energized from this point of the spine. We plucked up the back. And then from that, we have this connection with the shoulders, where when the shoulder comes forward, it opens all this up because the back is plucked up. And now we have change in the elbows and wrists too. So just doing this postural change and making these changes is, believe me, an extreme amount of internal exercise. But notice, not only look at yourself, but look around you, and you'll notice that the error that I see, I always laugh at this, the error that I see is always the same one, and it accounts for why there are certain things in old Chinese books that seem to be repeated over and over again. You have two possible errors, right? In making this change, well, there's a million possible errors, but two obvious ones. Look at the movement of the elbows. I could either start going like this, so I forgot to raise them. That would be a mistake, right? Or I could do like this. So finally I was doing this. I forgot to lower them. In fact, 100% of the people who do this start not lowering them. It never works the other way. You never find anyone who just happens to keep them down does this. Everybody lifts them, and then your exercise, I can watch people doing it. I can watch them. They start off perfect. The elbows go straight down. And they come up, everything looks beautiful. And they start concentrating, And all of a sudden I see the elbows don't quite go, they don't quite make it. And the next time, a little less, little less, little less. Finally, they're turning their hands like this, and one day they look at themselves in the mirror and they say, I paid somebody to learn this? To stand here and wiggle my hands back and forth. So you've got to keep all the parts moving, and the characteristic of this particular error is the elbows don't sync. Okay, now, if we say that this is peng, and we had yin, let's do it again. Yin, so we see the difference. Yin, yang. Now, if you just turn the lower part, peng and an. Okay? Now, we have these 4 changes. We can also put the arm in different external positions and do them. For instance, we can put them down here. Now, when we do an, it looks like this. We can additionally bend the wrists if we want, but it's still on. The characteristic of this is the elbows are pointing back. So the equivalent of them not syncing would here be them sticking out like this. So again, when you make this change, the elbows must be back this way. And the palms, notice as you put them back, it tends to make the palms like turn to your sides. And then you turn the palms down, it tends to stick the elbows out. This is something that comes up over and over again in teaching advanced levels of Tuisho, is that an internal change that I ask a student to do makes him make an external movement. And that external movement you can take advantage of always. So it's like a real tricky thing at that level. It's a good thing to understand it right now, that always you correct one part, it'll create a mistake in another part. Okay, if we have this position, now what happens if we make our peng position? Well, remember, we started by sticking the shoulders forward. So now the hands come in front of you like this. And this is the standard meditation position. It's actually just double peng down here. Like this. If we didn't have this thing of the shoulders forward, it would be like this. So when you make a change from peng to an at this level, it's from this kind of meditative posture to this position. If I make this as an internal change with as little external movement as possible, it still has that much external movement. The change causes that to happen. So like I say, don't despise that, but just realize that. But it has a much greater percentage of internal movement than doing something like this. So this is why they say when you teach Taiji, that if you just simply copy the movements of the teacher, you'll undoubtedly go wrong unless you're some kind of super genius, because you will automatically look at the external movements and think that these are the important parts, and you'll copy that, so you'll be like so good, and then one day you'll see the teacher who'll do it completely different. You'll say, wait, I've spent so long learning this. He said, oh, that part doesn't matter. The part you were concentrating on doesn't make any difference. That's what's happening with this exercise. These external movements that you learn later, they don't mean anything. In fact, there was Yang Chengfu's greatest student. He told him, you already learned an internal form, and it's completely internal and it's fine, so I don't even want you to learn our exercise. That's how unimportant it was to him, exactly what external form you did these principles with. But when you have the principles working, then, so I hate to see people arguing about external forms, especially like whether it's short form or long form. It's just so completely meaningless. This is the point. You got to have this going. Okay, now another concept. If this is peng, and this is an, think of this as a complete change. It's kind of like a pendulum swinging from one extreme to the other. I got peng on one side and it swings on the other side. And in fact, when you simply stretch the muscles and then let go, you can feel them naturally trying to reverse in this direction. It's just kind of like a natural opposition muscle group kind of process. So when you stretch this way and you let go, you can feel them naturally want to go back this way. It's this kind of movement that creates this elasticity. So you have to learn the difference between turning them and stretching them as far as you can and creating a kind of dynamic tension, it was called, this way, and then releasing it, and doing this and then just going, and just clenching your muscles as hard as you can, thinking that you're adding something to it by that, and that's part of the effort. So if you can learn the difference between that, you can progress really fast, because then your body gets very elastic really fast. You just you push it on these levels. So if you increase the elasticity of this way with linear movement, sometimes you just get overstretched tendons and stuff like this. That's why Zheng Manqing said Taijiquan works on the muscles and stretches the muscles, and yoga is like deficient in that respect. It just stretches the tendons. Whether that's true or not, it certainly seems to keep you from that overstretched problem. Okay, if that's pendulum going from one side to the other, let's say the middle is halfway in between, which is kind of like when you weren't paying attention in the first place. The normal stagnant position of the arm, the normal relationship here. Okay. So if we say this is an, this is peng, and we just let go and go to the middle, let's call that neutral. It's just the kind of bottom position. Right? So in fact, proper and correct changes don't have to follow any pattern on this pendulum. They can go all the way from one side to the other. They can go exactly halfway. They can go partly halfway. They can go slow. They can go fast. They can go at any speed. In fact, if you have different parts of the body, one can be changing fast, one can be changing slowly. They have very few rules in that sense. They have any sort of movement. But they have one rule that's very important. They must never stop. That's the rule. It's always doing something, even if it's going like this or some completely bizarre pattern. But we start off the movement, luckily, with things that are kind of regular that go sort of halfway and back. So you have very even stretches. Let's say if we do double on, like this. And remember now, point those elbows down. Oh, I'll show you right now Zheng Manqing's most classic correction. Give me the posture here. So take the shoulder like this, elbow here, push your elbow down straight, turn your wrist at the same time, pull the shoulder back with his fingers, and stretch your wrist out like this. What he's doing is wringing out the dish rag. He's both twisting it at both ends and then pulling on it, so to speak. So like these winding movements will tend to make you want to shorten everything because it's, again, the tendency of the body to keep from stretching. It wants to just stay stagnant. It wants to stay in bed. So you have to lengthen it. So it looks like you're stretching out like this.